Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computers 2K Now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Emman, your host for the next couple of hours, along with Nick.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mike is here.
It's Laurel.
It's okay. And Spence is here.
Laurel? As in a Laurel and Hardy handshake?
How about Lauren and Yanni?
It's Confife. Confef.
I only hear Laurel.
Oh,
And then other people tell me, oh, but it's Yanni.
All I hear is Yanni. Our number is 919-518-9773, Computers 2K Voice on Skype. And today's show is made possible by vMix Software, Telestream's Wirecast software, and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Gear.
I think it's a psyop. I think it's a distraction.
I was going to say this is being done by the CIA. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
And what they're doing is they've been releasing all that stuff into the contrails,
Oh my
chemicals, and this is the way they can tell who's been affected and who hasn't.
Alex Jones, it affected his voice.
It did.
God.
It affected it. Yeah, he's got he inhaled too many of those contrails, and now he's even crazier than normal.
Well, what are you going to do?
It's all right.
So
It's all right. So what else is happening? So Nick, you found something on Facebook that has to do with Spence, huh?
Ah, yes. Spence was taking his car apart on Facebook, and what was the grit of the sandpaper you took to it?
400 and 600.
400, 600 grit to the what were those that you were sending?
The engine block, the surface of the engine block
with shaving cream.
Yes. Oh, it's very cool. I researched this.
I mean, it looked quite interesting.
The actual method that's recommended by the manufacturers in many cases is to use these little polishing discs with these little fingers on it that you spin it at high speed, and it's a very light, easy way to get. You have to get all the dirt off of an aluminum block before you put the new gasket on. The new gasket material is almost like a gel, and it's not like the old metal. It is metal, but it's not. It just doesn't work the same way, especially when both halves, the head and the block, are aluminum. So you have to get it mirror clean almost. So I'm looking at this. You can't scrape it with a razor blade because you'll destroy the surface. And I found a guy using those discs where you do it with this high-speed disc, and it works great. And then I saw these other guys in these shops to say, no, get yourself a big, I had the big sander already, the big handle. He said, get wet, auto body wet sanding paper and polish it with that. So I said, oh, that's great. And then another guy says, well, you know how you block, you got all the water ports, the coolant ports, and the oil ports all around the head. He said, spray those with shaving cream to prevent the debris from falling down into the engine. And it's brilliant. You go in there, spray it in, you scrape it off so that it's all flat. You polish it back and forth, side to side, back and forth, go with the finer paper, and then you vacuum off the foam, and it looked great. I said this was so easy compared to what I thought I was going to have to go through, but it was so unconventional. It's like, but yeah, it was
You're not supposed to brush side to side. You're supposed to brush up and down.
That's true. Unless you have one of those sonic brushes and you can go.
Hey, Spence,
Yes.
Can I ask you to zoom yourself out a little bit?
No.
Please, 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 please.
Yeah, why
please.
is he
not
cropped
weird.
so much on your screen there?
Hey, what happened? Something it just changed by itself. What's wrong with this?
Sorry.
All right, let me.
Yeah,
let me
the thing, Nick, it's also if you ever use a drill to drill metal and you don't want shaving to go all over the place,
Mhm.
and especially with the engine that you don't want those things, then you just put a blob of grease right there at the drilling site, and it catches all the the shavings. And I guess you can use shaving cream also, but I wouldn't put shaving cream on grease to fill in all those holes on the block, because
No,
that'll
no
be
way.
very expensive and hard to get off.
This
So yeah.
I had a little vacuum nozzle, like a tiny, like a keyboard cleaning nozzle, and I
Yeah.
just used that and I sucked it all out and I wiped
Yep.
it off with a oily rag. And that was it.
Look good.
It's the head is on now. I'm in the process of putting the rocker arms and cam assembly on. It's all on there. It just has to be torqued down, and then I have to put the timing chain on and put the cover on, and then there's a lot of other stuff to hang on there though. Long way to go.
How did you keep track of what you took apart and where it goes back? Did you do pictures, or how did you
I
do that?
did. Well, I drew some pictures, diagrams, and I had little plastic parts boxes.
Okay.
And I labeled all the hoses and connectors. I labeled with tape and a Sharpie, and then
Awesome.
all of the bolts I put into individual compartments in these organizers with a label, so I'd know where everything went.
John in the chat says after you clean it up, you have to floss it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
That's funny.
Yep.
That's it. The toothpaste. I know people that use toothpaste to polish stuff, metal, because it's an abrasive. It's a grit.
I don't know that the new toothpaste is abrasive. The old stuff was.
I used to
Old
use
stuff used to be made with what is it? Oyster shells?
I don't know. It had grit in it, so that was great for cleaning. The new stuff.
Carborundum.
I used toothpaste a couple of times to fix scratched Xbox 360 games. When those would get worn
Yeah.
out for a while, that we'd take some toothpaste to it, and it took maybe a couple tries, but it would, I'd say 70% of the time that would get you back up and running.
Mhm. So what else is happening?
I did the Windows 10 update yesterday.
Oh, yes, you
and
did.
It broke my Behringer sound drivers. And I don't use the Behringer drivers. I use the USB codec Windows drivers.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, let me try to use the Behringer drivers instead. So I installed those, and the outputs were working, but the inputs were not, which is an issue I've had before. And after screwing around with it about 45 minutes, I just rolled back, and I'll try it again probably after next Tuesday when they do their next update and see what happens.
So are you saying that that you had the Behringer drivers installed and Windows screwed them up, or you installed them
No.
after?
I have an issue with the Behringer WDM drivers
Mhm.
on Windows on this computer, because I have two sound cards. I've had issues with it. The audio will click, it will get randomly distorted. So I've rolled back to just using, if I go into the sound
Right,
settings,
Because
I
that's what you
use-
told me, and that's how I'm running it. I did not install them.
I use USB audio codec, generic USB audio, which is the Windows default audio driver, and that works great. It works as an input, works as an output. I've had issues in the past with the Behringer drivers that it will only work as either an input or an output at the same time. So if I will open up like a recording, so for example, if I'm in the Hangout here, it's using my microphone, I will not be able to hear you back. But if I close out of the Hangout and start playing music, I pop back into the Hangout, you won't be able to hear me. So that was my solution to that. But the upgrade for me to Windows, or the whatever this update was called, I couldn't get any input to work, and it was to the point where it could not open the. It wasn't that there was no audio; it could not open the input to even listen to the audio. It was just saying there's an error opening your sound device.
Interesting.
I restarted, I uninstalled driver, reinstalled, and it got to the point where I could not get the sound cards to pop back up in Windows. That's when I decided I was going to roll back. So, it's part of the game with Windows. It's
It's so
but you
much fun.
shouldn't-
It's so
you-
much
you
fun.
shouldn't have
well,
to
you
do
know,
that.
it's just part of having a million different things that work in all these different ways. So, but fortunately with Windows 10, it's super easy to switch back. It took less than 5 minutes for the restore to happen. And the second it restored, it was back. My sound cards were correct. They worked, and I was off to the races. So it wasn't a big deal at all. And I'll continue to try it until eventually it works.
Spence, did you just do a Windows update?
No, I'm playing with my XSplit. That's why I turned. I didn't think you wanted
Okay.
to see what I'm trying to do
All right,
something.
that's
It
fine.
wasn't
Yeah. All right.
working on it.
So it's working now, Nick, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Worked all day yesterday. Appears to be working right now. So I believe we're good to go.
So Behringer never put out new drivers to go with Windows 10.
No, they've got these ASIO drivers that don't. I mean, I can't get them to install. There's not an installer for them. So and I don't really know how you're supposed to use the Behringer drivers on Windows 10.
So it doesn't recognize it as a generic audio
No,
device?
It does, and that's how I use it. But they've got some. They moved from WDM to ASIO, but there's no driver to install. It just says use our ASIO drivers, which maybe Windows is supposed to install. But if I go to update driver, it doesn't find anything. But it works as just a regular generic USB audio device. So just be aware if you're using, and it could be, again, I'm using 3 actually Behringer sound devices on this computer, so there could be some issues there as well. But it didn't work before the update, and that's an issue I've had in the past. This happens, I would say, every other update with the sound drivers, because I've got them kind of jerry rigged to work in their current configuration. So it's not really a surprise. And I really don't blame Windows, to be honest with you. I blame Behringer for not having freaking WDM drivers that work on Windows 10.
I followed your recommendation when I installed that Windows 10 machine and did not use the Behringer. And I thought you told me that that you don't use them. So
No, I don't. I mean, I have no reason to, because I've had issues with it. So I know you've got that set up. Brian has got that set up. He's got 2 Behringer sound devices. I guess I'll have to ask Sean what his setup looks like. But I think he only has 1 device. So I think that's part of the problem. When there's multiple devices, things get a little wacky.
Yeah, it works.
It does. Yep. Until you do an update. But luckily it's easy to switch back. It's really not a big deal whatsoever. So we're
all right. So Surface Pro 4.
You got a Surface.
Microsoft is unable to find a software or firmware fix for Surface Pro 4 affected by screen flickering. So it's launching a replacement program for them. So if you have a Surface Pro 4 tablet, listen. Any Surface Pro 4 units experiencing the problem will be covered for up to 3 years from the time of original purchase. The annoying flickering has been well documented on Microsoft's support forum, with some users taking drastic steps like putting their Surface Pro 4 in a freezer to temporarily fix the issue. Back in February, Microsoft said it was closely monitoring the situation, and the company came to the conclusion that there is no convenient fix. Some customers have already paid for a screen replacement to stop the flickering, since the problem typically arises when a machine is out of warranty. And Microsoft said they'll be offered the refund. The company notes that this 3-year coverage doesn't extend to other problems your Surface Pro might experience outside the warranty period. It only applies to the screen issue. Replacement devices are refurbished, not brand new. Surface Pro 4S. I don't know if there is such thing. If you bought one, but if you didn't, then maybe you get the 4S.
Well, hold on a second. That seems like a load of crap. So you buy a brand new Surface. These things are expensive. You spend like $1,200, and then they give it because it's broken because of them, and they give you a refurbished unit.
Apparently.
Oh man, I'd be pissed right off about that. That's ridiculous. You could have bought a refurbished unit for 3/4 of the price.
I was talking to somebody yesterday who had a Surface 3, had it about a year. He hates it. Hates it. He says he bought it thinking, oh, this is the best I can do for my money. And his father tried to talk him out of it, and he bought it anyway. And now he's like, really sorry.
I was somewhere. I was at there was a like an after work networking event I went to earlier in the week, and somebody there had so one of the companies there had the Surface Book laptops, the super expensive ones that are like $2,700 a piece. So I thought they're beautiful computers though. I'd love to have one, but they're just too expensive.
But if you look at the commercials, it makes you into a creative genius if you buy one of these machines. It's just it makes it look so simple to come up with this amazing content. Just touch the screen a couple of times, it's done.
Yeah, and then this Microsoft's actually smart for doing this. This is their expensive MacBook business equivalent. I mean, instead of buying, a $600 Asus laptop, Lenovo does this too with their Mike. What's that laptop that you have? Their like high tier business class one.
Carbon X1.
Yeah, those are expensive computers from what I remember. They're over $1,000, if not more. And I think that's all they're trying to do with those. But they're very, very pretty.
Yeah, but that's a lot of money for them.
Oh, it is. But you think about it, if a business is buying iMacs for everybody, you're talking at least a $2,000 investment per workstation. So
it all depends on what kind of kickbacks you can arrange, right?
Yeah,
you buy them for a big company.
Yeah, and I'm sure like everybody, like everything else, when you buy in bulk, there's some type of deal.
Yep.
Mike, I don't know if you saw this, but I was just scrolling through one of my tech blog sites, and this article reads, back in early 2013, the podcast community was freaking out. A patent troll called Personal Audio LLC, which we talked about extensively, sued the comedian Adam Carolla and his podcast and was threatening a bunch of smaller podcasters. Personal Audio claimed that podcasting infringed a U.S. patent 8-112-504, which claimed a system for disseminating media content. EFF challenged the podcasting patent at the patent office in October of 2013. They won the proceeding, and then Personal Audio wanted an appeal, and the Supreme Court rejected their petition to review, and the case is finally over. So this patent troll has lost, and I guess they're not going to be suing the. I remember there was a serious freak out about that.
Yeah, but these are people who don't know a lot about it.
Who, the EFF people or the?
No, EFF very smart.
Yeah,
it's one of these. Love podcasters. It's one of these things where I was listening to this guy on the radio one day. He was some unheard of talk show host.
Was it my show?
No, it was somebody professional, and um, the guy is saying that he's a right wing talk show host. He's commenting this. There had been some attack, Soros attack on Limbaugh or Hannity that week. I mean, it was something that we would all have heard about it at the time. So he goes on the radio that night. Nobody's ever heard of this guy, talking about how we here at talk radio are under attack. We've got all of our guards up. We are the other guys who are under attack never heard of this guy. I mean, it's podcasters are, as soon as there's a threat to podcasting, all these guys with 4 downloads a week are panicking, talking about how their livelihood and their future and going to be all in jeopardy because of, I mean, it's just a lot of squawking about nothing. There were a few people who were at risk, but the fact is that even whenever this personal audio went after a bunch of the defendants, they found out that none of them had any money. They sort of lost interest. It's all about the money. If there's no money, they're not going to go after them.
Yeah, I remember Leo's crew obviously was concerned, which makes sense. I mean, that's what they do. I remember they went after Adam Carolla, Joe Rogan, Leo,
Mignon Fogarty,
and a couple of other and then went after a bunch of not people that are no names, people that, as you're saying, just they don't make any money. So what the hell
they would have been upset had they not been named in the lawsuit, because that gave them some substance in the community by their own imagination.
So that was but I guess that's good that these guys were kind of put in their place, and good on the EFF.
Well, not put in their place.
Why?
Put in their place.
How not?
No, if they have been able to establish that they were legally entitled to a patent on the technology, there is nothing wrong with them asserting rights that they own.
I agree.
All right, that's an assumption. That's a base assumption. If I'm seeing this little Coke machine sitting, a gas pump sitting on the floor over behind you, that belongs to you because you paid for it. If you wanted to go down to the battery and throw that into the water, well, that wouldn't be a good thing because you'd be polluting the environment. But if you wanted to go throw it into the dump, and I said, wait a minute, that's classic, you shouldn't be able to do that, then you'd say, go mind your own business. And I'd say, you're right. It belongs to you. You get to do what you want to with it. So assuming that they legitimately had a claim or multiple claims to that technology, if they could establish it to a level of legal satisfaction, then what they were doing was totally appropriate. There were some unanswered questions, which is why they appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court looked at it, they said, we don't think that there are additional questions that need to be answered. Therefore, we're going to let the lower court's decision rest, which ended the matter. So it turned out that their claims were not sufficient to go after people. But until that's determined by a court, who's to say? I mean, if you're falsely accused of a DUI, and the people around you say, well, you know what, Nick was probably drinking. I mean, he's 21. I mean, he was probably drinking. We're not going to fight the case. But wait a minute, guys, I'm innocent. So you're entitled to have right and wrong established. It's fundamental to the system. You can't say that they got called on the carpet because, I mean, that would be like, if they had a legitimate claim, that'd be like you going to court and losing when you're not guilty.
Was that not, from what I remember when this all broke out, was this group not literally set up to do this? Like this was not one of these other patent trolls?
No. Well, they were trolling because they don't currently have a product, but they had a good faith basis to establish that they were entitled to the patent because they could show that and it's been so long since I've looked at it. I don't remember all the details, but this was not your typical. Let me back up one little step and say this. A lot of patent trolls go out and buy up rights to patents and then assert them against companies, knowing that they really don't have the claims are murky, that it's going to take a very expensive legal process to determine if they're right or wrong, and they use these lawsuits to extract money out of the defendants. Those are the patent trolls. If you got them at home at night, well, come on, Nick, you know that patent's not going to hold up. Well, yeah, I know, but let's make them prove that. Let's don't concede it. Maybe they'll settle with us instead of spending $2 million. Maybe they'll give us $250,000 to go away instead of risking $2 million to litigate this thing. And
Yeah.
so we'll do it.
It
And
looks
by the way,
like
we're a law firm. It's not going to cost us that to litigate it. Who's got something to lose here?
Yeah, and just looking at the Wikipedia page, so Adam Carolla's group spent $475,000 through the process of trying to
Most of
defend
it
this.
donated.
Oh yeah, it was. He had to go fund me or
And one of the reasons, because this is one of the things that came out of the lawsuit, is one of the reasons that the company sort of backed off, as they found out that Adam Carolla didn't have any money.
Yeah, there's a quote in here saying that the defendants, quote, "were not making significant money from infringing Personal Audio's patent," which is surprising because I think Adam Carolla is probably. I mean, you could easily say that Leo Laporte is making a lot of money podcasting. I mean, he's got a hell of an employee infrastructure there if he's not making any
That's
money.
exactly why you might not be making money. There's a difference between gross and net.
True.
I mean, I've known of some answering guy who claimed to be making a bunch of money, $300,000, 200, whatever it was, in podcasting, and he and his wife got on a podcast one day, and she said, "I don't know why you're telling people that. We didn't make but $50,000 last year," and then they immediately shut off the stream. But he was telling everybody he was doing 250, and the fact of the matter is, he may have been doing that amount of money gross. But I mean, you look at a business. I saw a business one time was doing literally, this is years and years and years ago. They were making grossing $100,000 a year, and it was taking them about $90,000 a year to operate, $10,000 profit. They went out, they worked real hard, they doubled their volume, and now it was taking $205,000 to operate. So they went from making $10,000 to losing $5,000 by doubling their volume. The gross doesn't mean anything. The net is what matters. I'd rather make $10,000 off 20,000 than make 10,000 off 100,000, because there's a whole lot less work involved. Usually.
Well, there you go.
So all I was saying is that in the rear view mirror, it looks like these guys were bad actors trying to assert rights that they probably did not have a good faith basis to assert. That's what the courts ultimately said. But I don't want to drop into the habit of just saying, because we don't agree with them, that they were wrong. They could have been right, and they had the right to have their case heard, just like we do about matters that are important to us. So I'm not defending them. I'm defending the system.
Well, thank you for the clarification.
And I'm glad they lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did any of that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, here's something it's a perfect subject for this. This is in the UK. According to Radio Joint Audience Research, RAJAR, digital listening has reached a new record share of 50.9%.
Stop right there.
Okay.
What does that mean?
That means that more than 50% of the people are listening to internet-based.
All right. Now, again, stop right there. And I know this may be in the article, but I want to go through the process of how we evaluate what we hear and what we digest. Does that mean that they are listening exclusively to digital, or they sample digital one time per day, one time per week, one time per month? And go ahead with the article. I want to see how they break this out.
Good point.
Let's see how they break it out, because without that statistic is meaningless without more.
Yeah, it says up from 47.2% a year ago. This milestone will trigger a government review. This is again in the UK. Into whether the analog FM radio signal should be switched off altogether. The BBC said it would be premature to switch off the FM signal. It could cut off drivers with analog car radios and disenfranchise older wireless listeners. Margot James, digital minister, welcomed an important milestone for radio. She confirmed that the government will work closely with partners, the BBC, commercial radio, transmitter business, Arkiva, car manufacturers, and listeners before committing to a timetable for analog switch off. James Purnell, BBC Director of Radio and Education, said, "We're fully committed to digital and growing its audience, but along with other broadcasters, we've already said that it would be premature to switch off FM." He said that BBC podcast listening was up a third across all audiences since the same time last year, accounting now for 40,000 hours a week. But younger audiences have not inherited the habit of listening to live radio, even on digital. So they are working on switching off FM. I mean, why would you?
Stop right there? It's a useless, irresponsible, meaningless statistic.
Mhm.
Because if you're going to tell me that over 50% are now listening to digital, I'm going to ask you what percentage of people are listening to radio during that same time period?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
guess what? It's
well-
over 90%.
Well, that's the thing is, Mike, you and I would fall into that 50% of people that listen to digital.
Absolutely.
I know you listen to podcasts in your car all the time.
But I also fall into the 90% who listen to radio.
Yeah.
93% of adults listen to radio every week.
And we're not being defensive. I'm just saying that these are a bunch of podcasters who are circulating this digital stuff. And guess what? Do you know who? Well, let me say, not go off that tangent yet. But guess who benefits most from podcasting? Broadcast media.
Because we've got the equipment, yeah.
Got the equipment, got the expertise, got the motivation, got the funding. Right now, the radio people, except for this podcast that I've been listening to with this moron who's a former radio guy,
Well, that makes sense.
there are exceptions to every rule, but the radio people, I mean, it's just a natural for them to be able to do so. I mean, think about it. If you wanted to get into the teeth whitening business as a clinic, who would be the most qualified person to get into the business? A dentist. He's already quite capable to handle teeth. But so it's a natural there. But what I'm getting to, Amnon, is that statistic in and of itself is meaningless. And in my opinion, if that statistic is gathered the way I think it is extremely low. I'll bet you that it's upwards of 75% of people listen to digital at least once during a week, whether they listen on the phone, whether they watch on YouTube, whatever they do. I'm convinced that there is now, if they said that that DAB is available in the UK and they're looking at where people spend 50%, more than 50% of their time, and they're saying that the digital delivery system is up by that amount over last year, then that's much more of a meaningful statistic. And it does indicate a trend. And the trend is to move in many cases to digital. But something I've learned recently, it just occurred to me by some stuff that I read. What does it mean? What is digital media? What does that mean? Does that mean podcast? Does that mean live, YouTube live? Does it mean what about TuneIn? What about Echo? Does that mean streaming a radio station? Is that now digital or is that terrestrial radio, even though it's the identical signal? But here's something else that advertisers have to think about. There are really two types of digital. One is active and one is passive. Passive digital includes the internet. You've got to open your computer and go to Facebook and read what's there to be able to be exposed to the content there. That's not any better than picking up a damn newspaper, which is useless. So there's passive digital, there's active digital. Active digital would be a podcast or a replay of a radio show that has the advertising in it, meaning that you don't have to do anything to be able to be exposed to the advertising, and you really can't skip past it. So that creates a problem for podcasting, even though it, in essence, is an active or push medium. You can skip past any advertising in it. And of course, I do it all the time. So now we're back to primarily radio, because TV, most people record DVR the stuff on TV and wind past all the advertising, just like I do. And that means that we're back to radio being probably the only active medium that you can't actively avoid the advertising.
Through this whole discussion, I was thinking about what is the exposure of turning off analog radio. And like Norway is the first one to turn off FM, and I think they're looking at turning off even more spectrum.
It's all off.
Yeah, but think about what happens if you only have one delivery method, digital over broadband, and the internet goes down, the content stops, right? So what if we have a national emergency where the only way that you're going to get information was over your good old AM radio?
Ham radio.
Or ham radio, whatever. But how are you going to, the average person doesn't have a ham radio in their house.
Right.
I know it only takes special people.
But the point is that think about the exposure. We're counting on the digital system to always work and be hardened when in fact it isn't. And
you're right, Spence. But again, anyone who's listening who doesn't know, Nick and I are both in the radio business. I grew up in it. Nick's growing up in it.
I'm sorry.
And the fact is that radio people tend to be their own worst enemy, because what you're saying is totally correct. If you look at times of national emergency, there are if the radio stations weren't there, and there are many instances whether it's hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, whatever, where a lot of the resources are gone. Radio is an absolutely critical medium. There's no question about it. However, even radio is going to have to deal with some things going forward, because, for example, now, if the infrastructure goes down, there's a good chance the radio station goes down. If the signal's being delivered over the internet, now the internet's not working, the station's off the air. Now
but the station itself still has the capability to broadcast. A guy can go into the studio and flip on a microphone.
What good is dead air?
So, but I mean, I'm talking about
what if you don't know where the tower is?
No. What Mike is talking about, a lot of these stations right now are getting their content over the internet.
I understand that. And I'm not arguing that. I'm talking about just having the availability of a transmitter that can get to people.
Well, yeah, in case of
some emergency.
Yeah, well, and I'll give you this example, Spence. We're about to move our tower site, and part of my backup plan is literally going to have a microphone feeding into a preamp that could be switched directly over to the transmitter, so you can drive out there, and just literally talk. Now
but you don't have it today.
No, you don't. No, that's absolutely correct. We don't have it today, but we will have that in the very, very near future, very short term future. But no, I mean, if you're interested in this, there's a great. I'll have to find the link for it. There's a great discussion about what kind of hit media took during 9/11, when all of those AM and FM and TV towers were all on the World Trade Center too, and how literally, if you didn't have cable in New York, there's nothing to listen to. All of the stations were off the air.
So that's not true. All the FM stations, because there were no AM stations on the tower.
No, the AMs were not.
Well, they had transmitters in New Jersey and Long Island City and other places.
Yes, and there was.
It's just you lost a lot of your connection.
Yeah, well, and a lot of TV was over on the. Actually, all of the 4 major TV stations were over on top of the Trade Center as well. So you got a couple of
case where AM was unimpacted.
Absolutely, WFAN, WOR, WNBC, WABC. I mean, all the
NBC.
Yeah, all those stations were on the air, but you could see how there was the mass communication. I don't know if you call it outage. I guess. So yeah, especially down here on the coast. I mean, my biggest concern is obviously a hurricane down here in Wilmington, and where are we going to be, and how are we going to be on there? Now, fortunately, I think that I believe I've devised a hell of a plan that we could stay on the air almost from anywhere in the world. But it's still interesting.
There is something else that we're not taking into consideration here with the digital or over the internet stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, there was a thing going around, paperless. We need to be paperless.
Yeah.
And the one thing that will prevent that is, until your bathroom doesn't have toilet paper, we are not paperless. The same thing is here now. Remember, you cannot ride in your car right now and have internet access consistent in
Fact.
order to be listening to radio. Now they're talking about, yeah, we're going to put this, we're going to put that, and low
5G
orbiting.
change that.
But that,
Supposed to be what 5G is supposed to do.
well,
right?
I mean, but a lot of them are talking about it and been talking about it for years and nothing happened. And that's not the only problem. The problem now, okay, so 5G will fix it, right? Now you're coming across caps and data limits. Unless you have unlimited, this is not going to work.
What you're saying is true, Amnon, but why? Let me ask you this question. Why? Remember back when cell phones came out, you're limited the number of minutes
Right.
and all that crap. Why? Why did cell phone calling become unlimited?
I don't know why it became unlimited.
Well,
I have
let's
no
think
idea.
about it. It's not hard. Why did it become unlimited?
I think it's all financial.
Well, yes, but the reason why is because the cost for the cell companies to provide unlimited declined so much that competitors started offering unlimited, and
Mhm.
from
Oh, okay.
competitive
Yeah.
purposes, now they all had to go unlimited. The
Right.
same thing's going to happen on data.
Well,
It's-
what's so funny is it was, and now it's not. I mean, when I remember when I had my first, when I had the iPhone 3GS, I want to say the data was unlimited with AT&T because it was just that nobody really
They
had
did.
smartphones.
They
Yeah.
did, and then gaming and all this other crap
Yeah.
came out, and then people started burning it down. Oh, YouTube probably is what screwed it.
Yeah.
And so I understand that, but the point was that 4G, and part of it too, and this could be a lie because I don't research it and verify it, but 4G was very expensive for cell phone companies to implement. That the 3G to 4G to 5G timing is such that based on their current financial models, the cell phone companies are not recovering their investment as quickly as they want to recover it. Now, I didn't say they're losing money. I'm just saying based on what I read, they're not having the big bonanza that they had planned, which is another reason, from what I understand, that 5G is taking as long to come out because they want to get all their money out of 4G as long as they can.
Sure.
The fact of the matter is that with technology, with improved bandwidth, unless things change, unless the FCC keeps robbing the consumer of bandwidth like they are constantly doing, that eventually the data will be so cheap it will be hard for some Sprint will come along and they're offering free data now, but you can't ever get to it. And then what is the other one? The
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile's coming along. They're offering supposedly the same thing, and they've got better service. Eventually, these guys get good enough to where they're going to force the hand of Verizon and AT&T, and in my opinion, they're getting close to that now. By the way, we're on a family plan with 10 gigabytes, which is fine. We got a notice last night that we had been charged $15 for a data overage.
Mm.
And I log in and look at the system, which we have the family management plan that I can limit data. We've only used 5.5 gigabytes, and then they're charging me $15 for another gigabyte.
Which I thought you had 10.
Well, I do have
Yeah.
10.
That's the point.
So I was on chat with them.
Oh,
for
it's just
about
an
an
honest
hour.
mistake.
Oh, they just, guy said this is just a system error. You can ignore it. And I said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's on your bill and you pay it.
Yeah, I said, how about this? I said, how about you give me a $15 credit just in case and for my time? He said, okay.
I think having been through working for Nortel and actually having to go through training in order to understand wireless rollout and all this stuff, I've always been fascinated by the great potential and the enormous exposure that there is, and that not many people are thinking about exposure and what's going to happen if something were to go away. You're going to get people used to having wonderful services, and then something will happen where those services will stop. And people, what do they say about there'll be a revolution when you miss 2 meals, right? What's going to happen when so many people are so tethered to their device and that service either gets interrupted or delayed? And what are people going to do? They're going to lose their minds.
Well, I mean, it's fact. Just with the internet. I mean, I will tell you, when my internet goes down, I get the heebie-jeebies because it's my entertainment. It's the way I conduct some business. That's the way I keep up with what's going on with family in many ways. We're very dependent on the internet.
Oh,
A
yeah.
friend of mine has his own law firm. He went into the office last Monday. He had no internet. He started doing some research. This telephone guy came by, found out that his internet service was good, but bottom line is it all pointed to his router having failed. So he calls me wanting to know what he should do and all that. And one thing leads to the next. And it turns out that we were getting ready to go buy a router and install it in his office, which his IT guy is up in Ohio and had to have a commercial router. He couldn't use one of these cheap consumer routers, which I can't tell the difference. And as he was getting ready to send his admin over to Walmart to pick up a router, the telephone guy walked back in. He said, "I got an idea." He had picked up a power supply at Entrex. He walked in there, swapped power supplies on the router, and it came up and started working. So the whole time it was just the power supply on the router. But here's a guy who is busy as a one-arm paper hanger, very productive, very efficient at what he does. He was shut down for 5 hours. He lost half a day's work that he'll have to make up on his own time because he's got commitments to clients. But I mean, it's not a joke now to lose the internet, to lose service.
No. And you think about what potential. We talk about losing the power grid, that the power grid is vulnerable. But what about the greater internet being vulnerable?
Well, I will tell you, I'm not real keen on going without food, but I will tell you that the whole idea of an EMP shutting down everything in technology does not intimidate me nearly as much as it does most people. I mean, at some level, see, and I've done it, and I've done it in this past month. I've read about 4 books in the last month. I would much rather read a book than sit on the internet. If I had to do it, it would not be torture for me. Now, not having food or medicine is a different matter. I'm not speaking to that. But in terms of merely not having as long as I can get daylight enough to read a book, and I've got enough books to last me till long after I'm gone, I'm good to go.
It's an interesting experience when I go up to Alaska, because the places that I stay have no, unless I was willing to get my own internet and bring it in, I'm on broadband. And last year was the first year I was completely isolated to just having my phone and broadband and tethering. And I did fine. The good news is that there's plenty of bandwidth up there because they put in fiber and there just aren't that many people using it. But I don't think I would have been able to do that same thing here because of the congestion on local networks.
Alan is saying in the chat, he said, if I lived in the US or a high saturation area of over-the-air broadcasters, my internet watching / listening would be substantially lower. And it's true.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, though.
I don't
If
agree
there-
with that either.
You see, you're from the younger generation that you like to do it on the phone, on demand, and all that. But again, I mean, I like to listen to the radio.
I would actually
It's-
disagree with you. And I mean, I go out of my way and make sure I listen to the radio. I mean, I have the opportunity to watch baseball games on the TV, and I find myself half the time streaming the audio online instead. I mean, I really do enjoy listening to the radio. But I think the problem you run into is, for me, I'm not speaking from a music standpoint, because I think music is a different
That's different.
music is a different conversation. But for other programming, you have to live in one of the top probably 20 markets to have a variety of talk information available on the radio. A true variety. I mean, everywhere else is there. If you don't have an all news all the time for station in your market, it's pretty much the same 20 shows across maybe 2 or 3 stations.
Mhm.
I mean, there's well, yeah, but I mean, throughout
Well,
multiple stations.
That's what he means if he was in an area where it was saturated with
Sure.
over the air. That's
But I'll
you
tell
go-
you this: if I were going to listen to an AM station, I would not listen over the air. I would absolutely listen online if it were available. If it were not available, I would not listen to it. AM is the quality is just too bad. It's
see,
Laurel Yanny all over again.
That's interesting, because I don't feel like I have that same
Well, you got better hearing than I do. See, you and I have different perceptions of things, and this is not, I'm not being funny or critical. It's just a fact from the age of my eardrums. But the fact is that the business, I guess the best way to describe it is whenever I'm talking with someone on the phone and they're on a speakerphone, they're too busy and too important to pick up the receiver and to talk to me. So I tell them to pick up the receiver because this hollow sound, and like when people use their webcam mics and all that, a lot of people who don't know any better are willing to accept it. It's hard for me to understand what they're saying. This background, my brain has more and more trouble differentiating the foreground from the background. And when the background is this hollow, echoey sound that's masking the foreground, it's just really hard for me to understand it. You don't have trouble hearing it, but you will.
Interesting.
Laurel or Yanni?
Well, I mean, I was going to say this earlier. We got off of it, but I saw an analysis of the entire Laurel Yanni thing, and it's my boss was asking. He said he would like to know what the technical difference is, and I can tell you. I say it's a different transfer function, and which he knows what that means. And then I even this morning saw an evaluation of it where they took Adobe Audition and did a spectral analysis of the signals, and what they found is that if you were to look at divide the spectrum into high frequencies and low frequencies, what you will see is that if you look at the high frequency spectrum, the energy is around the word Yanni. If you look at the low frequency content, the spectral distribution shows the word Laurel, meaning that if you take that file and play it through a high pass filter, which means that it passes the high frequencies and it cuts out the bass, you'll hear Yanni. If you do it the opposite, do a low pass filter, cutting out the treble, the high frequencies, you'll hear Laurel, meaning that if all you ever hear is Yanni, you've got really good high frequency hearing. And if all you hear is Laurel, you can't hear high frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what happens to me because
That's exactly as complicated as it is. But my secretary, it was really funny because we were in a meeting last week and one of the people in the room decided to do this test. He was playing the slider on the New York Times website has a slider where you can actually do a mixture between the two. You slide it all the way to the right, it says Yanni. You slide it all the way to the left, it says Laurel. All this was over and done with, and we go back to our desk, and my secretary comes up to me and she says, "I'm bugged about this." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I never heard Laurel." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Well," I said, I hate to tell you this. What? They have determined that the sooner you can hear Laurel, the higher your IQ.
Oh, Mike.
You
know that thing that you scroll left and right that allows you to hear Laurel or Yanni? Yeah. Well, on the TV, I heard Yanni, just like on that thing on the computer, I could not hear Yanni. I heard Yari.
Yeah.
You know what I hear?
So
I hear Morani.
You know anyway, what? You heard what Trump is hearing.
So she disappeared for a few minutes. She came back. She said, "Now this is interesting." I said, "What?" She said, "I went back and I did the test again. And as soon as I started playing it, all I could hear was Laurel." Oh, okay. So she said, then I started moving the slider to the right and all I could hear was Yanni. And I moved it back and all I could hear was Yanni. And I said, but this is really good. I mean, this really does tell you that it shows how your brain tries to adapt to things, because when you're on the slider to all the way to the right and all you hear is Yanni, as you start moving it to the left, it shows how well your brain is able to maintain the status quo by adapting to a changing environment. For example, when you go into a dark room, your brain tells your eyes to open the light to allow more light in, because your eyes are trying to adapt. But then you close your eyes and open them. Now it's pitch black because your eyes don't adapt to the dark as well. It's an interesting thing, but it turns out that the reason, which is what I suspected, the reason she could hear it is because women typically have better high frequency hearing, and she could probably hear better than anybody in the room.
Yeah, and I went to be fitted for some hearing aids if I could afford them, and they told me that it's the lower frequency that I'm having a problem with. So it's obvious. All right. Hey, Spence.
I'm muted. I play with the slider and I slide it over to Yanni and I hear Gary.
Yeah, something like that. Yari.
Because I know I don't have my hearing aids in, so I'm
Oh,
not
you sure don't want to
listening.
hear Gary. Next, it'll be saying Mickey.
Oh. Mhm.
Ready for specials?
I am.
All right.
I think we should take that tool from the New York Times and fix it so that it says idiot on one direction and moron on the other direction. That would be good. Okay. So,
Tandy 3000.
yeah. What an amazing image that's up there. It's really good, high quality. That's right.
Hmm.
So, Computers 2K Now specials for May 20th, 2018. And starting off, as we do every week, with laptops. I'm going to change the order some week just to mess everybody up. But starting out with laptops, we've got at Best Buy $100 off an Asus 2-in-1 14-inch Core i5, $629. At Office Depot, we've got an HP 15.6-inch Core i7 laptop for $499. That's $350 off. That had to be the best deal out there today. Is this machine? I don't know about ratings on it, but wow, $350 off for an i7. And Staples has a Lenovo IdeaPad 320 with a Core i5 for $499, which is $220 off. Desktops and all-in-ones, we have an HP Envy desktop Core i5 at Best Buy for $629, which is $100 off. We got a Dell XPS Core i7 desktop for $799, which is $250 off. And I had to throw in an entry-level machine. We've got at Staples an HP 260 Intel Pentium desktop PC for $269, which is $45 off. Perfectly fine for doing web browsing, most people's needs. They make these the Intel Pentium 3000 series and 4000 series are actual quad core machines. I think they're dual core, 2 threads, but so they actually have 4 logical processors, just like the i3 would have. $269, $45 off. Tablets. Best Buy has a Digiland 7-inch tablet, 8 gig, $29, $30 off. A half price. This is intended for children, so beware of what features you do and don't have as far as limiting content. Office Depot has a New Vision kickstand 11-inch Wi-Fi tablet with detachable keyboard for $179, save $120. This is Windows 10, and it's got an Atom processor. Staples has an iPad 9.7-inch 32 gig silver or space gray tablet for $279, which is $50 off. Networking, if you're looking to get a high-speed cable modem, Aris Surfboard 32 by 8 DOCSIS 3.0 cable modem for $98.99. That's $11 off at Best Buy. Office Depot has the Netgear Orbi AC3000 tri-band Wi-Fi system. This is basically the starter kit, which is a base station and remote. $329, $40 off. And if you're looking for a highly reliable 16-port gigabit desktop switch, and I think this does not have a fan in it, so it's quiet, Netgear ProSafe for $79, which is $20 off at Staples. Storage, Best Buy has a Western Digital 8 terabyte external USB 3.0 drive for $169. That's $130 off. Office Depot has a 32 gig SanDisk 3.0 flash drive for $12.99. That's $27 off the regular price. And they do have a 64 and 128 gig versions of this also on sale. Comparable savings. Staples has a PNY 240 gig USB 3.0 solid state drive. So a little bit more reliable than lugging around your spinning disk. $89.99, $20 off the regular price. Accessories. And Mike, are you there? No, he's gone. You're all gone. Or Nick is there. How
I'm
do
here,
I
don't worry.
pronounce this? Is this Klipsch? How do we pronounce that? You see that?
Klipsch.
Clips, I guess.
Yeah,
I've never heard
I
of
look
them
at that and
before.
it's like, Klipsch.
Clips. Yeah, I guess that's yeah.
Klipsch. Pro Media 2.1 Bluetooth speaker system. 3-piece system for $119.99, save $60.
Guaranteed to hear Laurel.
That's right. You have to buy. Which one would you prefer? Would you like the Laurel version or the Yanni version? Best Buy. Office Depot has a 650 VA APC battery backup system for $64.99, which is 10 off. And Staples has a Logitech K780 multi-device wireless Bluetooth keyboard, $64.99. This is the one where you can switch between 3 different devices. So if your workstation is your laptop, your tablet, and your phone, you can just, by pressing the button, switch between those 3 devices. And it does not cause you to have to go through a repairing each time. It actually keeps each of those connections active, which is nice. Monitors. We have Dell 24-inch HDR monitor for $119, save $110 at Best Buy. Office Depot has an LG 27-inch full HD IPS monitor for $159, $70 off. And Staples has an HP 27-inch curved monitor for $199, $80 off. Printers and scanners, we've got at Best Buy an Epson Workforce Pro WF4740 all wireless all-in-one for $179, save $120. Office Depot has a HP LaserJet Pro M203 DW duplex wireless laser printer, monochrome laser printer for $129, which is $40 off. And this is always my favorite printer to recommend is the Brother MFC. This particular model is the L2710 DW. This is the all-in-one printer, scanner, fax, copier with sheet feeder monochrome. $129, save $70. It's probably about the lowest you'll get unless it's a Black Friday deal. But super reliable machines, great for a small office. Very high duty cycle for a small machine like that. At Staples. Home automation and security. Best Buy has a $50 sale on the Night Owl 8-channel 4-camera indoor-outdoor wired surveillance system, video surveillance system. 1 terabyte DVR comes with that. $249, save $50. Office Depot has a Samsung SmartThings Hub on sale for $84.99, which is $15 off the regular price. And that is not out of the regular ad, but it appears in their larger online ad. And Staples has a TP-Link 60-watt smart Wi-Fi LED bulb for $21.99, which is $3 off the regular price. And we go off into Fry's and look at some of the unusual things that they have. Suction cup Gorilla Pod arm for your action camera. These are handy. I have one actually right here that I think I actually got it from, well, I don't have to show you, but I actually got it from Fry's a while ago. It's a gooseneck. It's very handy. I've taken it on trips, used it to mount my GoPro knockoff camera, and it can be very handy. $17.95, which is an instant savings of $12. They've got a good deal on a GoPro knockoff. This is based on the older GoPros, not the new form factors. But this is a 4K camera, Sunpack 4K action camera, $44.99. It's $25 off the regular price. I bought mine on Amazon, not this brand, some very strange brand name, and I think I paid like $70 for it. The only thing unusual about these, the good capability is sometimes the menus and the interfaces are not all that friendly. So it takes a little time.
Sunpack is not an unknown name. Sunpack.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like Sunbeam. It's just, you don't know where stuff's coming from. That's just applying a brand name to something. So Sunpack have been around for a long time. They're good,
photography stuff. Yeah.
Supply camera accessories, flashes, and all kinds of stuff like that. And I never saw them actually make cameras. But still, for $44, if it serves your needs, I need to replace the batteries on mine. They don't hold the charge very long anymore. We also have at Fry's a Bluetooth tablet, for using with your, it says Bluetooth or USB connectivity. So if you do things with graphics and you require to have a stylus and want to use a tablet, $99 for this. You can get it with a promo code. You can get six more dollars off. 750 VA battery backup system for $58. This is a new brand name that showed up on Fry's a couple months ago. A good deal for 750 VA. And they have a 350 VA entry level one for $30 after savings. That's a great one to have with your communications stuff coming into your house, your wireless router, your cable modem, your Wi-Fi to digital or Wi-Fi to Ethernet converter, whatever service you're on, your telephone adapter. Plug that stuff into one of these backup devices. So if you get those occasional blink, sags, or spikes, especially during the summertime, you protect your communications equipment from having to be restarted. They've got, and I covered these radios now because I have just experienced recently some of the new capabilities for car radios using either the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto. This stuff is slick. This will allow you to take your smartphone, if it's, I think it's iPhone 5 or higher. I don't know what the Android cutoff point is from a OS perspective, but it will act as just like you would use your Chromecast to put your screen up on your television.
Mhm.
It's not an exact, it is not a mirroring, but it takes and it puts up the icons, looks just like your iPhone on the screen in the car. So if you want to use maps, you can go ahead and just use your phone as the GPS and just put it up on the screen. It's brilliant. And so now you can actually buy car radios. Now, keep in mind that to have the screen, the format that you need has to be a double DIN radio. Double DIN radio is twice the standard height. A DIN is, I forget what the dimensions are in metric, but it is a standard size for a radio. It's double that in order to have the correct
It's
screen.
like a half height drive or a full height drive.
Yeah, half height, full height. The same
Yeah.
same concept. You're right. So starting point now, $259. So if you do have a car that is adaptable, you can sometimes replace your radio pod with a double DIN space that you can put a radio into. That is awesome. I mean, if I don't know that I would have spent this to put this in my my Hyundai Santa Fe as a double DIN, and I actually put in a double DIN radio, which was it was no price difference, and that's why I did it. I said it would. I thought it would look cleaner. The next one I put in actually replaced the double DIN slot with a single DIN radio, and the adapter plate actually had like a shelf built in. It didn't make any difference from a price perspective. But slick stuff out there to use the Apple CarPlay and Android Audio. I like it a lot. Coming with many new cars now, it's much better than having the built-in GPS that you either have to pay for or have to pay to get updated on a regular basis. Although it won't work if you're won't work that well if you're out of broadband area. That's one thing to keep in mind. Garmin 1440p dash cam with forward collision and lane departure warnings and voice control, $199. Well, the price of this stuff is coming down too. It's actually pretty good. It said it actually monitors your car's surroundings while the car is parked and the engine is not running. And it's a very small drain on the battery. $199.99, the dash cam 55. And finally, if you've got a requirement to charge a lot of devices on USB at the same time, here's a very inexpensive way. You can get a 10-port 12-amp desktop USB rapid charger for $22.99.
12 amp.
12 amps, 10 ports.
Wow.
Well, you think about it.
Yeah.
Most chargers now are at least 1 amp per port. So you're dividing 12 amps across 10 ports. So that's like 1.1 or so amps per port. It might have some high and lows. Like I have some chargers that say this port is 1.1, this one is 2.2 amps. But if you have a lot of things to charge at the same time, or you've got a family where everybody wants to plug their stuff in on the kitchen counter or whatever, this is a great way to go. $22.99. And that's it for specials for today, which is May 20th, I think, right? It didn't change to tomorrow.
It didn't
did
change.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. We were kind of going long on this one, so I thought it might have been tomorrow already. So
Thanks,
there
Spence.
you have it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
919-518-9773, Computers 2K Voice on Skype. Listen to this story. Google's unofficial motto has long been the simple phrase, "Don't be evil." That's the first time I hear that. But that's over, according to the code of conduct that Google distributes to its employees. The phrase was removed sometimes in late April or early May. Archives hosted by the Wayback Machine show. Don't be evil has been part of the company's corporate code of conduct since 2000, when Google was reorganized under a new parent company, Alphabet. Alphabet assumed a slightly adjusted version of the motto, "Do the right thing." However, Google retained its original "Don't be evil" language until the past several weeks. The phrase has been deeply incorporated into Google's company culture, so much so that a version of the phrase has served as the Wi-Fi password on the shuttles that Google used to ferry its employees to its Mountain View headquarters. So they don't have any more "Don't be evil." I guess that opens the door for the employees to be evil now, if they want to. And this is something that I always try to understand and pay attention to, but sometimes you just go bang, 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 bang. The Facebook Android app is asking for super user permissions, and a bunch of users are freaking out about granting the Facebook app full access to their device. An understandable reaction following the fallout from Cambridge Analytica privacy scandal. Grants full access to your device, read the prompt, while asking user for super user permission. These pop-ups originate from the official Facebook Android app, com.facebook.katana, and are started appearing last night, that was last week, continuing throughout the day. Panicked users took to social media, Reddit, and Android-themed forums to share screen grabs of these suspicious pop-ups and ask for advice on what's going on. When you go and you install an app, and I'm not a big app person on the phone, but it asks you, it wants access. Like if you have, I use an app that allows me to text from the computer and get the texts to the computer when I get them, so I don't miss them, because when I'm in the office, I don't look at my phone. And they ask you to access to your email, access to your contacts, access to, and you look at that and you say, what? Why do you need all this access? And I don't know what would happen if you say, no, I don't. It may not work. So you say, yeah, okay. So any of you guys have any kind of experience with tweaking these things so they don't have full access?
Some apps will not work if you screw around with that stuff.
So you have to give them.
Yeah.
Now I'm understanding that asking for super user was a blip somewhere, that because I've never seen anything asking for
No.
super user.
No. But I mean, most apps, and in most cases, you don't get an option. It just tells you what it's getting access to, and your answer is either
That's
yes or
right.
no.
You have to just say, yeah, allow.
Yeah, and which makes sense. I mean, an app has got functionality, and if you start turning things off, the app isn't going to perform and work
I
properly.
guess,
So,
yeah. Nick, did you read about the new Xbox controller?
I actually did not. I saw something about it, but I didn't
Yeah.
actually read about it.
A new Xbox controller designed for people with disabilities has been announced by Microsoft. The Xbox Adaptive Controller features 2 large programmable buttons and 19 jacks that can be connected to a range of joysticks, buttons, and switches to make it easier for a wider range of people to play games on Xbox One and Windows 10 PCs.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, anytime they make it easier for people with disabilities to get into these things, it's a good thing. Absolutely. And what did I say? Oh, what was that program? There was a program, I think, on an iPhone that you could say, what is the name of this song? And you can sing it and it gives you your name.
That's built into Siri.
So next time you hear a song featured in a YouTube video and you're not sure what it's called or who made it, you can find out by clicking or tapping the Show More button. So apparently YouTube has a new button called Show More. And if you hear the music, you can click it and it'll tell you what's the music playing. What's the name of the song. Interesting. There was we had a lot of talk about that secure SSL lock in the browser, and Google was saying that after May or June, they will actually push you down in the search results if you don't have an SSL certificate. So Google announced Thursday it plans to drop the secure indicator from the Chrome URL address bar, starting with Chrome 68, set to release in July, and only show a lock icon when the user is navigating to an HTTPS secured website. That's all. Excuse me. It says the move is scheduled to take effect with the release of Chrome 69, scheduled for September. And Emily Schechter, product manager for Chrome Security, said that the company is now comfortable making this move as a large chunk of Chrome traffic is now via HTTPS. Since most traffic is HTTPS anyway, it's not necessary to draw the user attention to the secure indicator anymore. So it will just show the lock. It will not show the secure word there.
This will still screw with your search ranking, though.
It will still
come July 1st. If
you
do not have SSL,
if you don't have an SSL, then absolutely it will screw up with your search engine.
So all of the websites that I'm managing over here for the station are secure using Let's Encrypt. So no excuse anymore.
Absolutely not. And YouTube is changing something too in their services. YouTube Music, a streaming music platform designed to compete with the likes of Spotify and Apple Music, officially has a launch date, May 22nd. Its existence will also shift around YouTube and Google's overall media strategy which has thus far been quite the mess. YouTube Music will borrow the Spotify model and offer a free, ad-supported tier, as well as a premium version. The paid tier, which will be called YouTube Music Premium, will be available for $9.99 a month. It will debut in the US, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, and South Korea before expanding to 14 other countries. Meanwhile, the paid streaming subscription service known as YouTube Red is being rebranded to YouTube Premium and will cost $11.99 per month instead of $9.99. Pitchfork notes that existing YouTube Red subscribers will be able to keep their $9.99 rate. But YouTube Premium will include access to YouTube Music Premium. So if you get YouTube Premium, you have the music and you have the streaming for $11.99. Now, YouTube Red is movies and stuff, right?
No, YouTube Red is their premium
What
service. They make their own content.
what content?
They make their own. It's their
Oh,
own
okay.
YouTube produced,
I
like Netflix.
I see.
Exclusives. They make their own content, which all of it sucks, by the way. But see, this is what's so stupid, and this is typical with Google. They're making and this is what Amazon's problem is. They've got a subpar product to Spotify at the same price.
Hmm.
Spotify is $9.99 a month. Why the
Yep.
hell would I switch to YouTube nonsense?
Yep.
Now, even if it's a, I don't know how it could be a much better product per se, but even if it was, it's the same price.
Well, it's somebody is trying to justify their position there and develop stuff, I guess. Now, you all heard about the fact that Seattle is going to charge Amazon added tax for sales tax or whatever. Amazon has threatened to move jobs out of its hometown of Seattle after the city council introduced a new tax to try to address the homelessness crisis. The world's second biggest company has warned that the hostile tax, that's what they call it, which will charge firms $275 per worker a year to fund homelessness outreach services and affordable housing, forces us to question our growth here. Oh, I see. I thought that they were slapping Amazon with the tax, but they're slapping every business for each. Oh, interesting. Boy, that's a lot of nerve. Wow. Everybody left.
I'm sorry, I'm still here. I was muted.
Yeah, I know.
It's getting so warm in here with Kill Away in the background here. I'm just gonna have to
Now,
turn the fan on.
listen to this one here. Twitter announced several new changes to quiet trolls and remove spam. According to Slate, the company will begin hiding tweets from certain accounts in conversations and search results. In order to see them, you'll have to scroll to the bottom of the conversation and click Show More Replies, or go into your search settings and choose See Everything. So they're going to I mean, if you have something that's out of context, or you're trying to troll a conversation, they're going to remove your. Of course, nobody's sitting there doing it. It's all automatic. So you can imagine the mess that's going to happen there. but more and more control. (919-518-9773). Guys, if you don't want me to hear more and more stories like these, call in and let's get some participation from the audience.
There's some questions and comments in chat that need to be answered. For
right.
example, who was it? John was asking whether most USB chargers have automatic shut off when the battery is charged. I don't know the answer to the question.
Yes.
But the fact is that I'm sure some of the cheap ones do not. The $3 ones have no sophisticated circuitry in them, would be my guess, and the more expensive ones do. I believe it's worthwhile to buy more expensive ones so long as it's not the cheap one with a higher price tag.
It is part of the standard, but it doesn't mean they invoke the standard.
You're actually not supposed to charge your phone to 100%. I watched a video earlier this week about wireless charge. There's this concept that wireless charging is bad for your phone battery, because of the heat transfer. But I guess your phone battery should stay in a range, according to this guy, which is it's unrealistic. That's why it's useless. Your phone battery should be between the range of 60 and 75 all the time. It should never get up to 100, which is just unrealistic for somebody
I
that
don't
needs to use their
understand that.
phone.
Yeah.
Which I understand why there is because, and Mike would be able to explain this better. It was probably 2 weeks ago I watched this, but how it takes so much, it creates so much more heat to push in. The analogy they use is getting 10 people into a car. The first 5 people fit in very easily, and the next 5 you've really got to shove in there to get the door shut. And that was the analogy they made with charging, is that to get the last 10 or 15% battery charge, you've really got to push the what would it be, the electrons into the battery, and that's causing the heat, which is in turn not damaging the battery but making the battery's lifetime not quite so long. But that's just unrealistic. I mean,
battery technology is very sophisticated and generalizations are not always helpful. But for example, there's technically there's no such thing as charging a battery. You don't charge a battery by storing energy in the battery. Batteries don't store energy. Batteries produce energy, but it's kind of a distinction without a difference, because what happens is it takes power to reverse the chemical process within the battery that produces energy. So it's really a distinction without a difference. The only devices that actually store energy are capacitors and inductors. Having said that, the problem with charging a battery, particularly with a cheap charger, is, let's suppose that your battery is a 5.1 volt battery. You use a 5.1 volt charger. Let's say it's a perfectly matched. If the battery is at 0, which you should never be, let's say it's at 1 volt, how much current is going to charge, quote unquote, that battery, or how much power energy is going to flow into that battery? It depends on the voltage difference, because on Ohm's law, you have to have a difference in voltage to create a current. If you got a piece of wire with 0 resistance, the voltage at the beginning of the wire is going to be the same as at the end of the wire, because there's nothing to drop the voltage. What I'm saying here is that if you got a 5.1 volt charger and a 1 volt charge on the battery, there's 4.1 volts available to quote unquote charge that phone. As that battery voltage rises to 5.1 volts, now there's no difference in voltage. There's no way to charge the battery. That's why it's an asymptotic relationship, such that the battery charges, it is slower when it gets to 100%. That's part of what this Samsung, I forget what their technology is, their supercharged technology. That's part of what that's all about, in that it actually has a 12 volt charger built into the USB charger. USB is 5 volts. What this charger does, this is not what I've read, this is what I think, is what it does is, even though it has 12 volts available, it actually charges based on current flow. It doesn't care what the voltage is, so long as it provides the right amount of current to the battery. When it gets to, let's say, 5 volts, and it shuts off the current supply. But the fact of the matter is, when it gets to 5 volts, the charging voltage may, in fact, be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 volts. Don't know the answer to that. I believe in buying good quality chargers.
I
Right.
posted the video in chat if anybody is interested in watching it after the show. It's a very dumbed down approach to it.
And the fact is that John says the battery in my phone swelled. I was told it was being overcharged. That's possible, but it's also probable that if the battery was 2 years old, the battery just wore out. It's
Yeah.
a chemical process. It uses its chemistry to create power. Then it uses the charger to reverse the chemical process. Then it does it again and it wears out. If you get 2 years out of a battery, you've done well.
I keep my phone on the disk and it's plugged into the charger all the time.
The correct charger, that won't be a problem,
Yeah,
because when
it's
it
the
gets
correct-
charged, it turns off. But
Yeah.
but it's just like John says, how do you tell? You tell whether it keeps working.
I also keep, that's why I like Kathy and me to have the same phone, because you can exchange batteries, and if she forgot to charge hers, I can just take the one out of my phone and put it in hers, and she goes to work. But I also, now what I do is I got a good charger, generic, for that battery, and I have an extra battery that I keep in it, in an outlet that is outlet that has a timer in between, and I turn it on 1 hour a day. So I let it charge an hour a day, so it just keeps it up. And I did it back with the Samsung. I had the same setup, and it worked great, because when I needed a battery, because battery went bad or battery forgot to charge, you take it off the charger, stick it in there, and everything is fine. But yeah, I mean, it's I think the swelling, Mike, it will happen when they're older. Not, I mean, I've had some batteries that swell in the phone, and you see that the back is kind of coming off, and say, "What? Oh shoot! Look at that." But that's when they get old, and I got that. That was over 2 years. So the problem is that there are many phones and devices that you cannot change the battery, and that's kind of, to me, that's a problem. I like a phone that I can just pop the back and put another battery in there, and the batteries are cheap. You can get 2 batteries for like $10, $15, and they're fine.
Mike, can you answer the question in chat? Why do chargers get hot while they're charging?
Sure. Absolutely. Why does anything get hot? It's a fundamental question. I mean, you have to ask the fundamental question.
There's a transfer of energy.
Well, no, heat is energy. That means that energy is being dissipated in the device. So what that means is that the charger is producing energy that is being burned up in the charger instead of in the device that it's being delivered to.
Wouldn't that be because it goes, 110 goes in and has to be reduced to 5, and what happens?
That's part of it, but with a switching power supply, you can the benefit of a switching power supply versus a linear power supply is that it only produces the amount of energy necessary for whatever the load calls for. Typically, the hotter a charger gets, the poorer the quality of the design in most part. And again, that's some of the cheaper chargers are going to get hotter than the others, because the cheaper chargers don't have the sophisticated control electronics in it to cause it not. So what does a switching power supply does? A switching power supply is the reason it's called switching is because the power actually switches off and on. Let's back up a step. If you get these little dollar wall warts that you plug into the wall, and then you plug the other end into your
Whatever.
I don't know,
Yeah.
your cassette recorder. That's what's called a linear power supply. And what that means is that it takes 110 and converts it down to 3, 6, 10, 12, whatever the voltage is. And that is, it's just a very simple power supply consisting, in the old days, of a transformer, probably 2 or 4 diodes, a couple of capacitors, maybe a voltage regulator, maybe not. And what it does is it lowers the voltage down to a user voltage, turns it into DC. It's constant voltage, nothing magic, nothing really creative about it. What happens is, though, the technology advances to the point that we have what are called switching power supplies. And what that means is that, for example, this transformer is converting the voltage from, I'm going to use nominal numbers, from 120 down to 12 volts. Then what happens is that the power supply, the switching power supply, says, well, the reason that we have heat here is because we have too much power from the 120 volt outlet available. We don't need all that voltage. We've got to get rid of it somewhere. And this is a gross simplification. But having said that, since we only need about a fourth of the power, if we only had the power supply turned on a fourth of the time, we would be able to not consume that power for 3/4 of the cycle. Did what I just say make any sense? If not, the rest of it won't make any sense. And that is, here's a good example. Let's suppose that I go into a room and it's too bright in that room. I want the lights to be about half as bright as they normally are. Let's suppose that I could turn the light switch off really, really fast so that the lights are only on half the amount of time. So it wouldn't be a linear process, but for discussion, then the room is not as dark. Now, is not as bright. It's darker. It's only half as bright in there. And the reason why is because we're delivering less energy to those lighting bulbs or tubes or whatever they are. That's what a switching power supply does, but it does it at typically 100 to 500,000 times per second that it turns it off. It only delivers half, a fourth, or 10% of the energy that it needs to get rid of. Therefore, it doesn't get hot. Now, the iPad charger gets really hot because, again, they are taking 120 volts and stepping it down to whatever the iPad voltage is, which I don't know, 5 volts probably. They have to stave off that additional voltage. And with the iPad, they're trying to do it. It actually burns quite a bit of energy, and they're doing it in a very, very small device. They don't have enough circuitry space in there, enough heat sinks, whatever, to make them smaller and smaller and smaller. And like, quote, Marty, unquote, says, it's duty cycle. That's the technical name for it. The lower the duty cycle is, the less energy that's delivered to the load, in this case, the iPad. And it gets a lot more sophisticated than that. I mean, you wouldn't realize it, but some of these switching power supplies are pretty sophisticated technology. They use isolated grounds. They use inductors, which are almost non-existent in other electronics anymore, except for RF electronics. They're very sophisticated devices. And I've never successfully repaired a switching power supply. I've never not been able to fix a non-switching power supply. They're very different technology, but she makes a good point that's actually very important. And that is, be careful with these chargers. I don't even care if it's an Apple. Be careful with them because they can get very, very hot. And when they're very, very hot, they can be dangerous.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about, the switching to on and off, there are devices that I use to keep 12-volt batteries maintained, like on the military vehicles that I don't use a lot. And they will shoot 24 volts into a 12-volt battery.
Mhm.
But they do it like it's to desulfate them too. So it bzz, bzz, bzz. You put the meter on it and you see it going on and going off, on and off. Because if you put 24 volts into 12-volt battery, I mean, yeah, it's going to do some damage.
All right, stop right there. What happens? You got 24 volts going into, it's not going to be at 12 volts, or even if it is,
Yeah.
you've now got 12 volts difference that's going to cause energy to be delivered to that battery. If it's more energy than it's prepared or designed to accept, then you're going to damage the battery.
Yeah.
Heat is the damaging element. Heat is
Right.
power.
Yeah, these things are made to be connected for months, and they just pulse it in there. And
But you could do the same thing with 12 volts. It doesn't have to be 24 volts.
I don't know. I mean, that's every time, every place I read about bringing dead batteries to life, they say take a charger and see if you can put 17 volts into it for about 30 seconds. You can't do that.
No, and batteries will explode.
Yeah.
You can get some very nasty explosion.
Yeah.
And Gary's right. Capacitor ripple current, it's not necessarily the rating, but the fact that the capacitor deteriorates with age and it's a capability to handle ripple current is the reason that for most supply failures. The problem is that when these capacitors fail, they often take semiconductor devices such as the controllers, the pulse width modulation controllers. They usually take out that chip with them. I got real aggravated one day and decided I was going to tackle one. I took it apart. I mean, I went through everything. I never did get that sorry rascal fixed.
Hmm.
Oh, it was a computer power supply. That's your best example of a switching power supply is the computer power supply. It's got plus or minus, plus 12 volts, plus 5 volts. And it's a switching power supply. It's a pretty sophisticated little device for $20. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it in China.
All right. Who likes big phones? Big smartphones?
Big what?
Big ones.
The however big this iPhone is.
Well, I don't know, but OnePlus has launched their newest flagship smartphone today at an event in London.
Mm-hmm.
The OnePlus 6, as it's called, features a 6.28-inch 2280 by 1080 display with 19 by 9 aspect ratio and notch. What I mean, I keep hearing notch. What is a notch? They say some phone.
The notch is on like the iPhone 10 at the top where the speaker is. That's the notch.
Oh,
So it's not the screen is not fully rectangular. At the top. There's
Okay,
the
I see.
notch for the speaker.
it has a Snapdragon 845 octa-core, that's 8-core processor with up to 8 gigabyte of RAM, 16 and 20 megapixel rear-facing cameras, 3300 milliamp hour battery, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. They have a headphone jack. And Android 8.1 Oreo running out of the box with support for Android P coming soon. Strangely, the phone features a glass build construction, but no support for wireless charging. OnePlus claims the glass back will be better for transmitting radio waves, but it's likely included in preparation for the OnePlus 6T, which will likely launch several months later and include wireless charging. 6.28. This is almost like a 7-inch tablet, which is not small. I mean, the phones that I just got, those LG G3, I think have a 5 point something, 5.2, 5.3, 6 point. This is one more inch, and this is already too big. It's amazing that they're going bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon you're going to walk around with a tablet. What was that phone years ago that was like a almost like a tablet, but it was also a phone, and we made fun of holding it. Tab.
Galaxy Tab.
I don't remember. Something was real big.
Yeah, the
Big phone.
Galaxy Tabs are Samsung's 8 and 10-inch tablets.
Your audio just went way up, Nick.
Yeah, your audio went up. Did you do something?
He's looking.
I'm trying to figure that out.
That's
Yep.
better.
Fine.
No,
Little
I don't do anything to have the audio just shoot up to 100%. It just does it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, you were saying Tab, Galaxy Tab, or something.
Galaxy Tab is Samsung's 8, 10, and 12-inch tablet
And
brand.
they
I
were,
believe.
and their phones also.
They sell models that you can put a SIM card in, which
Okay.
at that point it's technically a phone, but the use case is more for data than it is
Mhm.
a phone call. I mean, same thing with an iPad. You can get an iPad that has data on it. It's technically at that point a phone, but I mean the use of it is to have internet access when
Yeah.
you're not on Wi-Fi.
And
I don't know. Nobody uses them as phones. I think is the point.
if your Facebook account disappeared, Facebook said Tuesday that it had removed more than 500 million with a B fake accounts and millions of pieces of other violent, hateful, or obscene content over the first 3 months of 2018.
Thank God.
500 million.
I know I created like 4 fake accounts for demos.
I gotta see if they have any of my. They got any of my troll accounts. That's gonna suck. They
I
did.
feel left out. I don't have any troll accounts.
You're lagging behind in the times.
Well, included in all that is anyone who's posted anything conservative, because my wife posted a conservative comment and she was flagged for inappropriate content.
Oh,
fine.
jeez.
Hmm.
Nick,
Yes, sir.
here's something about Chrome.
Oh,
Google rolled out an update to Chrome to patch a bug that had rendered millions of web-based games useless.
okay.
You heard about that? I mean,
No, I don't
was-
really. I don't believe I don't think I currently play any web-based games. Trying to
the
think.
bug was introduced in mid-April when Google launched Chrome 66. One of these releases feature was its ability to block web pages with auto-playing audio. Not all games were affected the same.
Ah, okay.
For some HTML5 games, users could re-enable audio by interacting with the game's canvas via a click-to-play interaction. Unfortunately, older games and those that weren't coded with such policy remain irrevocably broken. No matter what, Chrome options users to Chrome options users try to modify in their settings section. So they fixed it and they to fix that thing, but it says it fixed the issue, but only temporarily.
Well, I've got a problem with Chrome's auto muting of tabs and stuff like that. I mean, I appreciate them wanting to auto mute auto playing videos, but when I go to a website with the intent of listening to something and I've got to fumble around and figure out where the hell the audio is muted, it's quite frustrating. Is it muted in the player? Is it muted in the mixer? The sound of the computer? Is it muted in the tab? It's just a pain in the ass. I mean, I can respect that they're doing it, but I find half the time I go to YouTube, it's muted in one of those 3, if not all 3 of those places, and it takes a minute to
undo it. Yeah, that makes no
do it.
sense.
It's annoying. And I don't know why it does sometimes. I mean, I don't know why it sometimes will just randomly mute or unmute sites. It's quite odd.
Remember last week I had a problem with capturing Chrome?
Yeah.
How many people would know where to go to turn off hardware acceleration in Chrome?
I actually have it off in mine.
You what?
I have.
Yeah,
It
mine
often-
mine was on, and somebody on the vMix forum, when I asked the question about it, say, "Oh, that's easy. Just go into Chrome and scroll down and find where it's the hardware acceleration and turn it off." Sure enough. But I said, I had to go look for it, and it's not easy. But obviously, not most people will not have a problem with that because it's used for when you capture the screen. Like, I mean, when you're seeing Nick right now, obviously Nick is not here. He's
Really?
on the other screen. and I capture that part. And last week I couldn't. I had to go to Firefox to do that.
I've got one story here to wrap
Yeah.
up the show.
Yeah.
We constantly talk about social media sites, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, how they don't really have a way to make it. Their value is not based off of what they make, it's based off their user base.
Mm-hmm.
So Snapchat, as of now, is starting to show 6-second ads in between Snapchats that viewers can't skip.
Of course.
So this is inevitable. It's the cost of using a free service, and
But do they have a paid service that would allow you to avoid it?
they do not, and they won't. And
They
won't
will.
introduce one. Nah, I don't know if they will.
Then I'm glad I don't use the service then.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes, and if they actually make any money with it.
As far as I know, almost everyone who has done that has had real problems. I know
Yep.
that I tried to watch some shows on the NBC app, unwatchable. Absolutely unwatchable.
Oh, because of all the ads, yeah.
Oh, I mean, you can't skip past them, and they'll sometimes put 6 or 8 ads in a row.
Yep.
Literally. I mean, it's just insane. And so, I mean, and there's always a way around it. I mean, if you find out, let's suppose that you're in a situation where you cut the cord and somehow you end up being able to subscribe and get NBC, you'd need to do a screen capture so that you could then play it back off your computer and skip past the crap. It's just unwatchable. I don't object to people making a living. You got to make some money. If I wanted to use a Snapchat or one of those, if I had an option to pay $4.95 a month to get rid of the advertising, if the app meant anything to me, I'd pay it. If not, I just won't use it.
Well, and I mean, that's
I
what I
know.
do with Spotify. I spend $10 a month for Spotify because I don't want to listen to ads between songs.
And
Yeah,
there's a certain irony in there somewhere.
Why?
Now we'll talk. YouTube Red has no ads. But what is their content? What do they have on YouTube?
It's just the garbage stuff that they're producing.
Like what? I mean, is it their own documentaries or
it's not even they take popular YouTubers and they throw them in shows. I watched a series on YouTube Red and it was atrocious.
These are YouTube celebrities. Like, what was this other one where this woman got killed in an airplane? They called her one of the.
Well, never mind all that. Go ahead. Never.
What was it? What was the one where this lady was killed? They called her it wasn't Snapchat. It was.
Oh, she was an Instagram star.
Instagram.
You're talking about the girl that got killed in the plane crash in Seattle.
Well, no, this one was in Phoenix.
Phoenix, sorry, yeah.
Or on the way to Phoenix.
No,
she was on the way to NAB.
Yeah, well, these people, so they're doing a couple things. They're doing some regular TV series, but they've got a couple of series that are just very popular YouTubers. And when I say very popular, I mean like tens of millions of subscribers on their channel. Like very, very popular. I haven't seen anything that's been impressive.
But say Marty is saying here that it's YouTube without ads, and actually that does have some appeal. If
that's
I were,
part of it.
Right.
Yeah, you're paying for the exclusivity of you're paying for the exclusive content, and part of that is free ads. It's like saying you're paying $100 and $120 a year for Amazon Prime, but that's like you saying you're paying for Amazon Music.
right.
You're not. You're paying for Prime. You get
Well,
music as an addition.
That's what I was just going to say. If you do have Prime and you go on Twitch, there are no ads.
Oh yeah, well Twitch Prime, correct. Yeah, but you
Yep.
wouldn't say you're paying $120 a year for
Right,
Twitch Prime.
right,
That's kind of what this is. There are additional benefits of YouTube Red, but you're paying for their original series that they have, and they've got a bunch of them. I haven't found any of them any interest.
I mean, Alan says that YouTube works okay with an ad blocker, but an
does.
ad blocker is not going to stop a midstream.
It will.
How?
It blocks all the ads on YouTube.
Including the ones that are in series with the programming.
Oh, with the programming, no. But no blocker will stop. YouTube Red's not going to stop
Right.
that either.
That's what I'm saying. That's it. It works for a lot of applications, but not all of them. There's always some way to get around it. I mean, even pop-up blockers, there are ways of using JavaScript or something now to get around it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have my ad blocker off on YouTube, because they let you skip, I would say 95% of the ads. Plus, that's how these people make their money, and I can.
So Alan says it does, so I stand corrected. That's fine.
Well, yeah. Are you saying in program as in they're literally built into the MP4?
The part where it says no,
You're talking
not-
about
obviously
mid-rolls.
nothing's going to fix that.
Yeah, you're
That-
talking about mid rolls.
Pre-rolls even.
Yes, the ad block on YouTube will stop any type of advertising that YouTube is injecting.
And when you say it stops it, then what does it do in its place? Does it just skip over
Is
it?
it-
Skips right over it.
It,
Yes.
How can it? Oh, it does skip. It's not black screen.
I'll show you a quick example. So let's see if I can show this real quick.
Why don't you do that after we
You have to stop the recording. 'cause
stop
you'll
the
get-
recording? So
flag.
we don't have a problem with that.
Well, I'm not
stay.
going
We'll
to
stay. We'll.
I'm not going to even show a video. I'm going to post 2 links in the
Okay.
chat.
Oh,
That is an example of a video with ad block on. You can see that video is 4 hours and 10 minutes. Here's the same video without ad block on. All of those yellow blocks are advertisements. I'm sorry. I wish I could show the.
oh, yeah.
Actually,
Well,
I
you
can-
can do it. You can do it. You can do it after
Let me do a screen share real quick.
we
Hold on.
stop the recording. All right. So,
Hold on.
anything else?
I've got to get out of here early, so
All right.
Yeah, so do I.
Well, it's already late.
I understand. So this is only because of our hard work and dedication that we're still here.
Okay. So thanks, Mike, Spence, Nick. And good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie, and Dana. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing, back up your hard drive, and update your virus scanner. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. While you're at it, like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tonight at 7, Nick Craig is hosting Against the Norm, right, Nick? He does. On Wilmington Big Talker 106.7, and you can listen on TuneIn. See you next week, everybody.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.